Hey all, it's Webcam Parrot here, to talk about a video I've been hinting at for quite some time, and that is covering a well-known powerhouse in the comic book community, classic Doctor Strange. So for this video, I've compiled as much of his most impressive abilities as I could, including some huge things for Marvel in general that I've never seen anyone else talk about. I'd like to start by going over the various unique magical effects that Strange is able to generate just using his own spells. No artifacts or anything like that. Most common amongst these is what is sometimes called BFR, or battlefield removal. Things like sending someone to a location beyond space or time, sometimes even transporting entire crowds or groups of people into different realms. One of these notable locations is the Dark Dimension, a realm that itself contains infinite dimensions and should be infinite universes distant from the Earth, something that most characters could never come back from. Perhaps the most impressive showing of this BFR is when he created a sound out of pure energy that went beyond the very fabric of sound itself, to send Mordru back through time against his will. The Sorcerer Supreme can of course transport himself as well, and close or seal off similar dimensional portals or techniques made by others. Things like turning invisible or creating a group of illusionary clones of himself is a relatively easy task as well, that he often performs to buy time for his more impactful spells. His regular mystic blasts or attacks are said to directly attack the soul, and are often described as soul-shattering, also implying that his own soul has some kind of defense against these attacks that he withstands himself frequently. Doctor Strange can of course summon demons on a whim as well, although he usually does not do this because of the huge difference in power between himself and a regular demon. In one case, it seems as though he was able to summon Juggernaut, but this probably isn't something that is all too useful to him, considering Juggernaut tends to be very unwilling to cooperate. By conjuring the Crimson Crystals of Cyttorak, Stephen Strange can also seal others away forever within the crystals, which even works on the spells of other sorcerers. Of course, the mind is a common realm explored and exploited by the sorcerer as well, with him frequently delving into mind probes to extract secrets or forgotten memories from others. He can go beyond this into straight-up magic hypnosis, which he was even able to grant to a large troop of his own clones, disguising them in the process, and he can of course unhypnotize people as well. On many occasions, Doctor Strange has been forced to wipe the memories of those nearby, and on one occasion the Ancient One, who ultimately gives all of his powers to Strange when he dies, was able to erase the memories of every single being on the planet. Even when he is asleep, the sorcerer is able to protect himself in this way by uttering the appropriate chant before he falls asleep, so that he cannot be caught unawares by enemies like Nightmare. In an incredibly bizarre situation, he shrunk himself down to tiny microscopic size to infiltrate the Ancient One's mind, where he then found and destroyed his ego forever, effectively killing him. Although for the Ancient One, this eventually resulted in him becoming one with the universe, other less experienced characters would simply die. Doctor Strange can also phase through other objects, becoming intangible, and can make others phase or go intangible, which can be extremely defensively effective in many situations. Strange not only has immense control over his own magic, but the magic of others too, and is capable of power-nulling weaker sorcerers with a wave of his hand if he has to. Additionally, he can reverse the direction of other spells, like in this case, where he turned a life-draining spell back on its caster, or when he reflected all of Mordru's magic back at him. Transmutation is another power at his command, like in one case when he was able to merge a bunch of strange beasts together into a ball, or when Clea, his assistant, turned a man into a pig. You could also say that his defeat of Dracula and curing vampirism from himself and others was the result of a type of transmutation as well. He can of course return transmuted people to normal as well. He can also create money with his magic, for whatever that's worth, and make protective barriers. These all pale in comparison to his advanced mastery and manipulation of time, however. With the world at stake thanks to a huge stockpile of nuclear weapons, Strange had only seconds to stop Omegatron, and so he extended those few seconds into countless years, turning a moment into an era, but only for Omegatron and no one else. In another case, even when the entire world was destroyed, Strange was able to stop time and then reverse it, repairing the entire planet in moments. Eventually he would discover and learn a spell that would allow him to freely travel throughout time without incurring any negative effects from time travel paradoxes, even travelling back to the beginning of time with this power. For ordinary mortals, time is a raging torrent which sweeps them along, but to Doctor Strange, time is a gently flowing stream whose currents may be breached with magical ease, with it being stated that he literally uses his magic to transcend time. He can also absorb the powers of others to an extent, but I'll cover that later. Next, I'd like to go over Doctor Strange's ability to just destroy stuff. How much straight up power does he actually have? Or what can he do just by blasting stuff? Well, immediately I'd like to note that even regular magical attacks from complete novices in the magical arts are stated to be capable of reducing things to atoms, which can be pretty useful against enemies that can regenerate from their blood, for instance. If you are reduced to nothing but atoms, there's no blood or whatever to regenerate from. But what about Strange himself? Well, it was a reasonably easy accomplishment for him to casually defeat an alternate reality classic Namor, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and the Hulk at the same time. Earlier into Strange's appearances against Staigiro, a living star, he was able to defeat the stellar being by making it go supernova. He also believed himself to be far superior to the might of Adam Warlock, calling him a minor mystic. Doctor Strange powered a banishing spell that prevented an entire race of extra-dimensional demons from existing on Earth, with a might that was said to be capable of shaping or shaking a universe. Against a spell-absorbing creature, the Master of the Mystic Arts was able to just straight up use spells that were so powerful that its spell absorption didn't work, killing it. One of Strange's most iconic villains, Nightmare, is a powerful entity that rules and controls an entire realm of his own, the realm of dreams, and when he was in an extremely amped state, was able to corrupt and capture the abstract entity Eternity, only to then later be defeated by Doctor Strange. He was also able to break out of the Living Tribunal's spell on one occasion, but it was pretty trivial for the Tribunal to simply make a stronger spell and trap him again. The Living Tribunal was obviously just holding back, and that's the only reason he broke out, but it's still impressive that Strange is so strong that it even surpassed what the Tribunal expected. The Master of the Mystic Arts also overpowered Satan, a being who was later revealed to be Mephisto in disguise, despite being in his own realm and seat of power, something that even Galactus has struggled with before. However, his best feats of this type come from his battles with Dormammu, who, despite being in an incredibly weakened state and inside Strange's body, not his own, away from the source of his power in the Dark Dimension, still claimed to be the equal in power of gods like Odin and Zeus, beings with their own numerous universal and multiversal feats, stuff that my friend the Chadwick went over recently in my Hulk vs. Doomsday video. Full-power Dormammu is even more formidable. Despite initially being described as far more powerful than Strange, and someone he could not possibly hope to defeat, the Sorcerer Supreme was still able to hold his own against the dread Dormammu on several occasions. Later, as Strange improved over time, his strength would be directly compared to Dormammu's, with it being said that he was his equal on more than one occasion. Much later, he was even able to replicate a feat against the Mindless Ones, repairing the dimensional barrier that previously him and Dormammu had to accomplish together, albeit with help from the Outcasts, a group of heavily weakened wizards that should definitely be far weaker than he was when he was helping Dormammu, meaning that at this point he was much closer to Dormammu's power, if not his direct equal. But more concretely, why are these attempts against Dormammu so impressive? Well, it relates back to the Dark Dimension, Dormammu's realm, that is stated to contain dimensions without end itself within it, which is accomplished thanks to Dormammu absorbing other universes into the Dark Dimension. The Dark Dimension itself is sustained entirely by his power and would cease to exist without him or someone like him to rule it. To add on to this, the residents of the Dark Dimension, even very early on, thought he might destroy the entire realm in his rage, and in one of his fights with Strange, it was stated that his power was spreading out to worlds beyond counting. After being defeated, Dormammu would be sent to the Unknown Realm, a universe of strange proportions where every atom contains its own universe, and in only a very short amount of time came to rule over this entire realm as well. Umar, Dormammu's sister, is known to be particularly powerful as well, and has been defeated by Strange before, but is in a weird position, as she has been variously described as stronger than, equal to, and weaker than Dormammu across a wide range of comics, and the only occasion where Strange was actually able to defeat her was in a comic where she was said to be weaker than her brother. This is of course still impressive, however. Also worth noting is that Urthona thought if Strange truly wanted to and went all out, he would be capable of turning his home universe into its own Dark Dimension, and intended to do the same himself once he took over Strange's role as Sorcerer Supreme. So there are a lot of good reasons to think that Strange should be at this level on his own. Later, we'll see that by using specific amps or power-ups, he's capable of doing much more than this. But for now, I want to briefly move on to his speed, and leave his most powerful feats for the end of the video. On the lower end, he was able to travel from his home in England, Greenwich, to Bavaria in Germany near instantly, which is about 909 kilometers, meaning if it was done truly in an instant or a few moments, he had to travel roughly Mach 2650, several times faster than a lightning bolt. Of course, this is utterly trivial compared to many of his extra-dimensional adventures, like when he travelled an infinite distance in finite time with one of his spells, or moved so fast that time was suspended entirely. He's travelled through realms where conventional formulas for speed don't make any sense at all, like realms that have no time, or realms where space and time are one and the same. On another occasion, Doctor Strange travelled so fast that he risked running into a past version of himself, and of course, as I have spoken of already, he regularly flies through time in this way, something that we would normally call immeasurable speed. Something that might be surprising to some of you is that Doctor Strange actually has a large number of abilities even without his spells, some of which he resorts to when he can't use his magic for whatever reason. Most obvious among these is his martial arts skill, which, whilst not being spectacular, is certainly far greater than the average person, and is something he often improves through sparring with his servant Wong. He also has the stamina to fight for 3 days straight if he has to, and has highly trained senses that allow him to notice things other people might miss. Strange has trained to release his own soul from its body, becoming an astral form that is intangible, invisible, and can fly, as well as allowing him to physically interact with other spiritual objects, although originally he was not able to cast spells when he was in this state. He can also use telepathy without his magic, allowing him to communicate with others even from other dimensions, and has a notably strong mind that was stated to be infinitely more powerful than even a demon that was highly practiced in this exact art, which allowed him to completely take control of it, again, despite being unable to use his magic at the time. He also displayed this mental fortitude in a mind battle with an alien who, again, was seen as specifically competent in this exact area. He can also hypnotize others, including cosmic entities like Nightmare, using conventional strategies and tactics, making them see or believe in things that are not there at all. He typically does this by doing something like waving a coin in front of them, the classic hypnotism technique, or seemingly more esoteric methods that he doesn't really explain to us. After he was killed by Silver Dagger, Strange was forced to confront Death herself in her own realm, but was completely unable to do anything against her at all. However, thanks to completing the Ancient One's challenge, he was able to subvert and avoid Death by merging with the empty space where Eternity had once resided, and accepting his own death, becoming immortal. Now he could no longer age, and death could no longer come from within, only from without in situations like battle. So he could still die if somebody killed him, but he couldn't die from something like sickness or age necessarily. This was later able to protect Doctor Strange against a minion created by Mordru, who could age things decades at a time with its merest touch. Even things like spells would fizzle out of existence when it encountered them. After being aged to death, Strange was able to return thanks to this immortality he had gained. On one occasion, he was able to fake his own death by going into what he called a deep Zen trance, slowing his life processes down to almost zero. We also see that he now has a glowing Ankh mark that appears on his forehead, warning him of and giving him time to prepare for situations that seriously threaten his life, a boon that he gained from the aforementioned efforts against death. It's also worth noting that normal people's hearts cannot withstand actually using magic for very long, and end up failing without proper training, which of course Strange has. And he of course is also an incredibly skilled surgeon, something he developed in his life before he pursued the mystic arts. On top of all this I have already gone over, Strange has various pieces of equipment that can increase his magical capabilities or provide new and useful powers to him. The most famous of these is his Cloak of Levitation, which can allow him to fly and is capable of moving around and acting on its own via telepathic commands. On one occasion, the Sorcerer Supreme was also able to store the majority of his essence within the cloak, protecting him from being transmuted into a tree. Additionally, the cloak also has a basic level of spell resistance, even protecting a normal human from one of Strange's time reversal spells. Strange also has a special anti-magic demon banishing knife that he got from Silver Dagger, who at one point killed him with it. His amulet is another powerful and incredibly useful artifact that boosts his normal power levels, but it also contains the Eye of Agamotto, a powerful force for good. The amulet can open locks and improves his ability to read minds considerably, with it being often stated that no lies can withstand the Eye of Agamotto, even against incredibly formidable foes. The eye will also act on its own, producing a paralyzing effect on anyone that attempts to harm its owner, even without a direction from Doctor Strange, or can scry into other locations, allowing him to see into other universes or dimensions. It can reveal invisible things, and is a method for transferring life energy. After defeating Dormammu, Strange was gifted a more powerful version of this amulet and the Cloak of Levitation I mentioned earlier by the Ancient One. Using this more powerful amulet, Strange could absorb the spells of other wizards and even broke through Umar's protections with it. It forcibly ripped a hostile spellcaster from his own dimension, pulling both him and Strange into a third, separate dimension so they could do battle away from something Strange wanted to protect, and was able to mind control Namor and the Hulk. The light from this amulet is particularly powerful against evil entities, which cannot bear the sight of it, even powerful foes like Nightmare, and has reversed time before as well. It is a formidable artifact compared to other relics like the Wand of Watum, which it was able to completely drain of its powers in only a few moments. The all-seeing Eye of Agamotto can drain the essence from other creatures or beings, both empowering Strange as it makes them weaker. In situations where Strange has forgotten something or is having his memories blocked magically, he was able to use the eye on himself to recover them, and can pierce the veils of time, letting the Sorcerer Supreme see into the past or the future as he desires. After reaching a certain point in his studies, the mystic was granted a ring by the Ancient One that would allow him to use spells even in the astral form I spoke of earlier. Another well-known artifact kept within the Doctor's sanctum is the Book of Vishanti, said to contain the counterspell to every spell known to man. Strange rarely uses this book, but he has used it to trap people in other dimensions or send them to some far-off realm. Lastly, also within his sanctum, is the Purple Gem, which can be used to trap others within the Purple Universe inside of it forever, a location that even the Sorcerer Supreme cannot return from easily. The Purple Gem can also be set to send all living beings within the room into this dimension without any seeming ability to resist it. With the use of all of these artifacts, and a few others, together, Strange was able to briefly equal the might of Adam Warlock's Infinity Gauntlet, which when used by Thanos just about overpowered Eternity, a being far stronger than Dormammu, although it taxed Strange greatly to do this, and was something he needed to specifically prepare for. Strange also has a fantastic resistance against the spells or ability of others, and so here I will go over the various different effects that he has been shown to resist or counteract. After being sealed in a strange cube-like effect, he was able to cast a counterspell to undo this sealing, and has similarly broken out of the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak when Baron Mordo tried to use them on him. On one occasion he was reduced to being a two-dimensional flat object by another wizard, but was able to return to normal using the Flames of Fultine. When the powerful mystic entity Zom tried to cast a mystic maze of madness and erasure on him, Strange was able to break out of it, and he recovered far faster from being drugged than a normal man would have. Against Despair, Dweller in Darkness's greatest servant, Strange was able to resist his all-encompassing fear effect, despite being at one of the lowest points in his career. Fear manipulation was additionally shown to not affect himself or Clea as long as they were in their astral forms as well. The Master of the Mystic Art's mind has special mental defenses that he must consciously turn off, and even his unconscious, soulless body resisted the efforts of another wizard's spells. He was also able to defend himself against the attacks of Voltor, who is said to be capable of destroying and atomizing all matter with his attacks, and against Dormammu's terrifyingly powerful Maelstrom of Madness, Strange used a combination of a psychic barrier and the Flames of Fultine to break out of it. An attempt to erase the Doctor from existence failed, and the Orb of Agamotto, a powerful magical artifact, failed to overcome his mind with its illusions. When a special time-warping and slowing device was activated, the Sorcerer Supreme was able to nullify and disable it with one of his special charms. Now in the final portion of this video, I would like to talk about the various powered-up states that Strange has attained over the years, and why they are impressive. The least of these happened in a realm that would have made demons like Mephisto or Satanus look like mice in the Grand Temple, which is where the Sorcerer Supreme encountered the angel and servant of Shumagorath, Arioch, a being so powerful that he believed his abilities to be endless in comparison to the Doctor, until Strange, using a certain strain of dark magic he would not normally resort to, was able to drain him of all his power, that he then used to confront Shumagorath themselves. In this very battle, Strange would continue to absorb power from Shumagorath, with the Elder God stating that this was pointless, as it would just result in Doctor Strange becoming Shumagorath. However, despite this, Stephen was able to finally fully drain and defeat the Elder God with this power, although it left him a shattered being that was now neither Strange nor Shumagorath. He was so immensely powerful like this that he had to waste vast amounts of energy before returning to the universe, or the pressure of the magic naturally leaking out of his body would have annihilated galaxies by mistake. In their first conflict, one of Shumagorath's minions was stated to utilize and release an energy greater than he had ever faced before, placing it far above previous foes like Dormammu or even Eternity. Nightmare was so terrified of Shumagorath that it readily obeyed all of its orders out of fear, and a vision of Dormammu created by Strange specifically told him that he had been eclipsed by his new foe, implying that Doctor Strange also thinks Shumagorath is stronger than Dormammu. Of course, Strange in this heavily powered up state was at least comparable to the Shumagorath, if not more powerful than it. The second power-up, if it could really be called a power-up, really it's more like outside help, was used in his battle against the In-Betweener, a powerful cosmic entity claiming to be completely beyond the reach of even Eternity, and was said by Strange to be less of an entity like Dormammu and more of a living concept like Eternity. The In-Betweener also scales to an outerversal realm known as the Quadriverse, a place without time or location, placing it outside of the concepts of time and space, made by beings called simply the Creators. These Creators also intended to turn Doctor Strange's universe into a realm like the Quadriverse, stating that they would need to replace science with magics and shatter their concepts of logic and add sorceries in its place. However, the Creators were not actually particularly powerful themselves, and were simply empowered by the In-Betweener, which is what allowed them to do this. To add onto this evidence of outerversal scaling, the In-Betweener is also stated to walk the path between all concepts, and was basically impossible for Strange to defeat under his own power. I personally find this to be the most compelling evidence for outerversal Marvel, and of course applies to more powerful abstracts like the Living Tribunal, even if it doesn't apply to entities like Eternity or Death. Strange was able to defeat and undo the In-Betweener, who believed himself to be omnipotent, by accessing the powers of his creators, Order and Chaos, something he could never hope to resist. Of course, this presumably requires Order and Chaos to agree to this, so it's not something Strange could reasonably just use in any confrontation. The last and most powerful version of classic Doctor Strange that I'm going over in this video, maybe the most powerful Doctor Strange ever, at least in my opinion, comes from the Doctor Strange into Shambhala comic, where, after going through a great number of trials, he ascends into the ranks of the Lords of Shambhala, becoming a being who would be described as beyond void, form, time, ego, and illusion, an existence that was everything, the planner and the plan, creation and creator, presumably placing him at least at the same level as the divine creator, a being for whom all of existence is merely a dream. This is, however, another transformation that Strange only held temporarily, and isn't something he could just readily use in combat at any time, which is why I included it at the end here. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed. This one was quite a long one in the making, because a lot of those classic Strange comics are just so utterly boring, racist, and sexist. There was arguably more stuff I could have included, but it's pretty hard to tell where classic Strange is supposed to end and where modern Strange is supposed to begin, so I kind of just used my gut on this one. Marvel doesn't have good separation points like DC does with its crisis events. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.